Is there something that you've seen in terms of a trend from the ones that make some of your clients great and from the rest?
It's actually the anti-trend. I call myself the anti-trend coach, which is putting your earmuffs on and getting rid of the noise. When you're chasing trends, you're going to exhaust yourself, because what performs well is originality. And the only original content that exists is when it's coming from your own personal voice, experience, perspective. Nothing is actually original.
Right.
What is the ROI for you? What does that look like for you? Because cool if you got all these views, but if it's not translating into dollars and your ROI is a dollar amount, all right, something's not working. What is the point? That's just running on the treadmill with no destination in sight.
World-class lessons from the real estate industry's top 1%. Empowering agents to think bigger and do more to create life by design.
All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Light It Up Podcast. Our goal, of course, is to empower real estate agents to think bigger and create a life by design. Today, we have a very, very special guest. Giselle is an online performance coach and top motivational speaker. She's known for her content accelerating keynotes and programming designed to teach entrepreneurs, executives, and everyday people to have a healthy relationship with social media. Giselle has a collective following of over 500,000 followers. Giselle was recognized by TikTok as one of the top 100 women to watch, and she's also shared the stage with Gary Vee. Recently, Giselle made a huge splash in the real estate industry, and of course, that's why we wanted her so badly to come on and talk with us today when she founded the first ever real estate talent bureau, the Talent Brokerage. And I also read that you have a Chihuahua named Penelope Cruz. Is that right?
I sure do. And she's playing with her little blue Smurf at my feet. So at some point she might chime in and say hi. Who knows? But
awesome.
She's my emotional support hamster.
Love it.
Great. Well, we are known to go into the lightning round just to learn a little bit more about you personally. Let's hit it.
Let's go.
All right, Giselle, how do you get in the way of your own success?
Oh, that's a good one. It is a combination of when I want to do something, I just go for it. And also, just like everybody else, I get into that freeze state. So why that's a hindrance, I'm someone who I go for it, but I don't always think about the roadmap to get there or what I actually need. I see the mountain and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go climb the mountain. And where someone else might be like, okay, hold on a second, but what should we pack? You know, or how long is it going to take? Or how much should we warm up beforehand? I'm like, I'm good. Like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out as we go. Like, oh, we run out of water. I'll drink my own pee. It's cool. And I don't always prepare for some of those little missing pieces along the way. And then at the same time, I can also get into analysis paralysis, which is I get into that freeze mode of just keeping my feet in the ground and holding myself back and thinking that I am not ready or equipped or prepared or who knows. But I do feel like our weaknesses are also our biggest superpowers. And so when you can find someone on the opposite side of that fence to either hold you back, help you find that map, or push you, it's always a recipe for success.
Yeah, no, that's so well said. The reality is that you can strive and think big, right? It's Matthew Ferry we had on the podcast a couple months ago, and he said it's never a goal issue, it's a timing issue. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you want to achieve something and you set your sights on achieving it, it's not the issue of how you're going to get there, it's really just when. Mm-hmm. And if you're committed to that. But then if it works, let's say it doesn't work the way exactly you wanted to, you get stuck in the analysis paralysis mode because now you don't want to go through the same pain that you went through. We're trying to figure out how to get there the first time. Mm-hmm.
And they're all related because that's the thing. Like I have sparkly ball chasing syndrome where I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Squirrel. Oh my God, I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I've learned over the years, and maybe we'll get into it, to like harness it and figure out how to do one thing at a time. But where that paralysis comes from is like, okay, but like, what's the first step going to be? Or which one are we going to go for first? I mean, I'll get into it. But one of the things that has helped, if you're listening to this going, oh my God, that's me, is I started to write in a journal that was meant to be put away. So for example, I would have a really, really good idea and I would write it down in the journal just to get it out of my brain and just to get it out of my anxiousness, and then I would put it away and go, not right now. Like, let's finish what we're currently doing first, and then we'll go back to it. Or, all right, like, do we really need to research this? Or is this something that we're going to do in the next week or the next 30 days? Or is this something that it's like not for 3 years? So do we really need to be focusing our energy in it? All right, let's write it down. We'll remember this idea. Let's put it into a folder in Gmail, and then we'll put it back. And so that's one of the things that has helped to where I can actually get to the top of the mountain versus continue to climb and climb and climb and be like, wait, where's the destination? I'm confused because I kept on taking so many detours, chasing all the sparkly balls.
No, that's so good. There was an interview with Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, and they both asked them to write down on a note card the one key to success, and they both wrote down focus without knowing the other wrote the same thing. And it's interesting with having a lot of these conversations and meeting some of the most elite people in the industry. The commonality between everybody is the focus on the objectives that are important, not urgent. Because if that idea seems like it's going to slip away, and it seems like there's a necessary need to give it attention, that's going to take you away from what's actually important. And that's the vision that you have set, which is awesome that you said that. All right, next question. What is your worst habit?
Oh my goodness, I have so many. Let's see. Worst habit. I wait until the last minute for pretty much anything and everything. Whether it's getting ready to go somewhere, I'm always at least 3 minutes late. I've gotten better over time. Now it's like right on time, but maybe I'm sweating. Or if I know that I have something really important the next day, or even if it's packing and like going to the airport, I have it calculated as a science of I don't want to be to the airport more than an hour before my plane takes off. And so I always like leave myself only the right amount of time, which again, like it's all about survival mode and preservation. So for me, it's that I want to give everything else the amount of time that I think it needs. And so it's just the right amount of thing. And, but a lot of people see that as not good. And, could I be better? Maybe. Is it a superpower though? Working under pressure? Also, yes.
I can relate to you on that level. Mm-hmm. Very scheduled, but also if I have more time to look into it or research it, then I can probably put it off for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like if I see a deadline, I will take until the last second of that deadline. Whereas some people see a deadline and they're like, why didn't you give this to me an hour before the deadline? I'm like, because that wasn't the deadline. The deadline
I'm with you.
was this one.
I'm with you on that. I've got a cheesy one here for you.
Love
and usually
cheesy.
I try to make KIRO do the cheesy one. So it just, makes me look like a stronger host. What's your most used emoji?
The upside down smiley face. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
You can use that to be clever. You can use it to be flirty. You can use it to be like cute or, but it's just, the upside down smiley face is my go-to.
I like it.
It's sort of like just, you could say something like ridiculous and just if you put haha after it, then it doesn't sound so ridiculous.
That's exactly what the upside down smiley face is.
Same idea.
Like,
I
are
like
you
it.
sure? Give a little punch and a twist, but an upside down smiley face. I'm not being an asshole.
Yeah. I like that. All right. 2-part. First is, what are you most worried about for the next generation?
I'm actually most worried about our next generation, that our generation is worrying too much. I feel like we are setting up our next generation to fear before they can experience, to like prepare for the worst before the worst actually happens, and to be victims of our own actions. And that goes across the board with social media, with school, with the way that we look at ourselves, to expect that people are going to treat you differently before you even give them a chance to meet you, to believe that everything is out to get you before you actually go. That's for me something that I also, even with what I do, with how I talk about even social media and video and personal development, that's one of the ways that I attempt to do my best to help you to realize the glass boxes that you're putting yourselves in, but that you're pointing to everybody else and the algorithms and, before you even have a chance to realize like, oh, wait, I did this myself and I can take accountability. And if I'm the problem, I am the solution.
I love that. There's so much power in that statement. Because people are victims thinking that it was a circumstance that was given to them. And if they take ownership, that's when they have the power to change it.
100%.
So that's so powerful. John hates this question, but I'm going to ask it because I love it.
Great.
If you can spend a whole day with one or two people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I definitely wish that I could have gotten more time with my grandmother, for sure. I say that my dad's side of the family in particular, they're Tex-Mex, so the border crossed them. They didn't cross the border kind of a thing, which takes people a moment to think about that. Like, wait, what does that mean? Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. Like, yeah, we forget about that part of the population. So I wish I would have had more time with her. I want to know where I came from. I want to know what the norms were like for her. I want to know, what she taught to her 9, then 8 kids.
Yeah.
That's not something that we do nowadays. And the fact that she actually had a career as a teacher, not as, an entrepreneur, but still, I believe that that's the hardest job that anybody could have. So she had 2 of them, teacher and mom. And so I would be curious to like go back and really spend some time with her. And if it was anybody else, I'd want to spend time with someone who is a completely different perspective than my own, in a different side of the world that I don't even know exists. Maybe it's Eve. But
the beginning
yeah,
of time.
my grandma is definitely someone who I wish I would have had more time with.
Yeah. Very rarely when you speak with someone on a podcast, especially virtually, you could feel the essence of their energy. And you could tell from just a couple of your responses, perspective is such a huge thing for you. And kind of going back, it's almost like, how they say the
In hindsight, 2020.
Hindsight's
2020.
Yeah.
And connecting the dots, it's almost like you could tell that's a big thing for you. And, even talking about some of the weaknesses being superpowers, and just reflecting on those things, it's accepting oneself as they are, who they are, and everything encompassing in that.
I'm starting to like that question more and more.
Yeah.
It tells you a lot of introspective, like, of the person.
It does, because
Yeah.
certain people will say things like family members, like you did. Other people will, I think some people think that we're looking for an answer of like, it would be Warren Buffett or, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And then other people have just said like, no, I would like to be with like, lead singer of my favorite band, whoever it was.
Yeah. And
So-
totally that too. Like, I would love to hang out with Sarah Blakely, but I
Yeah.
think I didn't say her because I'm just convinced that we're going to be best friends, or that we already are on Instagram,
Yeah.
and that we're going to go on our private jet and drink Diet Coke and tequila and Cheez-Its. And, she's someone also who I'd want to spend time with, because I feel like she got married a little later in life. She had kids later in her life, and from appearances, it seems like she has a really established, awesome work-life harmony. She has a husband who's also very entrepreneurial, and she gives people an inside look at that.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like you see a lot of successful people and in business, but you have no idea what their personal life is. And so you simply look at the projection of what they've achieved financially or professionally. Okay, but if your whole personal life is falling apart, what difference does that make?
Right.
Or at what expense is that for? And so she's another one who I also respect and admire.
Yeah.
And I'm also convinced that I would have founded Spanx. I just didn't think that there was anything significant about the fact that I used to cut off the feet of my tights and put them on under my pants. But
So you
apparently-
used to do it back then
I
as
did.
well?
But it was just my way of doing it. It wasn't necessarily to smooth out my body, but I was a dancer growing up, and we had like footless tights. And I did notice that, wait a minute, like, I really like the way that my legs look, and my pants are a lot more comfortable when I wear my tights underneath. But it was also just a method of going from school to class to performance to all those different things. But then I realized, like, wait, this looks really good under my homecoming dress. This looks really good under my but didn't. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
It happens.
She can have it. She can have it. Yeah.
You're going to
she can
get
have
your
it.
break. I see it coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think that's a good segue. Did you have something?
I just wanted to say I'm always a big believer of contrast creates clarity, and kind of reflecting on the hardship of what your grandma had to go through and the sacrifice. It almost gives you so much more appreciation for the accomplishments you've had right now, which essentially goes into, like, when we were preparing for this, there's so many accomplishments that you have, and things that you've done that people would want to trade places with you and do the same thing. What are one or two that you would never trade the world for, and things that you're the most proud of that people wouldn't be able to tell?
Oh my God, that's such a general question.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I don't even think I've ever shared this story publicly before, but we wonder why we do the things that we do and why we are the way that we are. And I've had to a couple times do like float backs where I'm like, like where did this come from? Or where did this habit come from? And I didn't realize this was happening at the time until I looked back on it. But when I was 10 years old, my mom brought me with her to coach a Special Olympics dance class. And my thought was, I'm just going to sit back and watch. And like, here I am being forced to go to this thing. I didn't even know what Special Olympics was. So for me, not wanting to go and have a resistance, it had nothing to do with the organization. It was just mom's pulling me to something that I don't know what it is and I don't want to go. And then I got there, and because I was so young, obviously I wasn't given any responsibility, but I did have someone, grab me and say, hey, do you mind coming and sitting with one of our athletes for a moment? His name was Christopher, and he was someone who was deaf and he was blind and he had Down syndrome. And mind you, I'm 10 years old. Like, I've never been exposed to someone like this before. And to most people, that could potentially be really scary or intimidating or overwhelming. And for me, it just felt like, okay, cool, like no problem. And this was someone who typically during experiences like this, he would rock back and forth. He would, just simply face the wall. He would make a lot of very loud noises and kind of screams and yelps. And for me, I just it was just a natural inclination for me to like slowly grab his hand and start to do what I could as like a friend to introduce him to dance and what my mom was teaching, even though he probably wasn't fully capable of understanding what was going on. And there was just this instant connection that he and I shared where I don't think I fully grasped it at the time, like what I was feeling and the connection that we were having, where we ended up like holding hands and we were jumping on the trampoline and like spinning around and like having a great time and laughing. But for me, it just showed that like, even if you don't feel like you can fully articulate what you want to say, like everybody has a story. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be able to connect. And so I feel like that maybe for me was what allowed for me to realize either this gift that I had in seeing that in other people. And then I have been involved with Special Olympics ever since. I was a coach since before I was allowed to like be certified as that, and I serve on the board and what have you. But for me, it's just been a constant desire to help people find what that looks like, to help people find what are the things that make you happy. How can we communicate with you even if you're not fully able to grasp the words yourself? How can we tell your story or share your gifts with the world, even if you're not fully able to comprehend that? And so where a lot of people typically look at that when it comes to personal branding as, executives and entrepreneurs and top producers and all of that, for me, it's a bigger picture. It's the visibility of the world and realizing that no matter who you are or where you are or what talents or abilities that you have, everybody deserves to have the chance to speak, to share that story, and to hopefully inspire somebody else in the world that no matter where they're at in their journey or where they want to go, they can find someone who they can identify with. And when we have video and when we have social media, you're able to do it in a way where back then, social media, Instagram, none of that existed. So you couldn't even, be able to connect in some ways to those types of people. Or even with me coming from Minnesota, where there was no one who looked like me or sounded like me, being this olive brown girl who came from a Spanglish speaking family. And so how cool it is now that we have these devices and gadgets to be able to connect with people and share those stories in a totally different way. And everyone is worthy of sharing their stories.
Yeah. When you work with people and, you're going through helping them create their story, become authentically themselves and embrace it, a lot of, when you go through in any industry, people are just focusing on the end result of what they want. And they think that the goal is the destination. How do you fall in love with that process? Because that's really, truly where people start lighting up and where it actually starts resonating with everybody, right?
It should be. My friend Samara Bay, she is the author of the book Permission to Speak, and it just came out yesterday, a little plug for my friend. we were talking yesterday because we were at dinner celebrating this accomplishment of hers. And I said, look how far you've come. Like, look how far we've come. We've been friends for 10, 15 years. And we were both at the bottom when we met. Like, we were both trying to find what the next job, what the next gig was going to look like. And she said something. She said, yeah, but you know what? I'm really glad that it doesn't feel that way because it happened so slowly. And it's kind of been something that I've thought about for a long time. You know, would you rather be this overnight success or this person who goes viral overnight, or would you rather have it happen gradually over time, and maybe you never even hit $1 million or 1 million followers or whatever that is? And if I could go back and change it, I really wouldn't, because I do feel like what is allowed for me to like look at the destination but appreciate the journey is being able to have the journey. Like, have the hard work, have the fall on my face moments, have the mistakes, have the regret, have the rejection where it did take work to do it. At the same time, I do feel like, when your eye is on the destination, when you're working really hard, I even have a Post-it like right here that says celebrate, because it can get really, really difficult to take moments to celebrate and to take moments and look at how far you've come and to realize and recognize like, oh, wow, like I really am in the position of what I was praying for 5 years ago, or, oh my gosh, how funny that where I was 5 years ago was where I was praying for 5 years before that. And I got there so much faster, but like, oh my, whatever. So I do feel like what's helped me to appreciate the journey is having the universe, God, whoever you believe in, punch me in the face and say, nope, you thought that it looked like this, but it doesn't. And it forces you to pause. I like to say that breakups are the best things that can ever happen to you. And it doesn't matter if a breakup is a romantic relationship, a business partnership, a breakup with yourself, and releasing a different chapter into your life. But it forces you to like take a moment, look back at what got you there, because there's always that moment of like, how did I get here? Why am I even here? Like, how did I get so, like, it is that, like, that rock bottom place or mid bottom, whatever place that, like, that's, I think, what allows for you to appreciate the journey, along like getting to the destination.
Yeah. No, I love that. The proprietor for our studio, his name is Scott, and he went to a trip to Italy because he has an obsession with wine. And he was telling us a story about this area in Italy. I don't know if it's like the Amalfi Coast or wherever it may be. And he was like, these grapes, they grow right on this shoreline where it's like super hot, unbearable conditions, this and the other. But he's like, do you know how much a glass of that costs? It's like one of the most expensive wines in the world. It's just because of that conditions it goes through. And again, It comes back to contrast creates clarity. And I think the biggest thing and the hardest thing is that when you're in the world where you see so many different perspectives, you could lose your own in that essence too, right? How do you coach people through that when they're dealing with that struggle or identity crisis?
Well, one thing that I say is Instagram is not a highlight reel. We hear that very much. Instagram is a highlight reel. No, it's not. Instagram is a fragment of time. That's it. And I humanize it by simply saying, I had this one picture that I typically share it once a year just because I love it so much. But I was in a parade a few years back where I was dressed like Wonder Woman, and I had the full getup. Like, this was a custom made costume with a big gold crown. I had a massive rainbow flag that I wore as a cape and these huge, like, over the knee red platform patent leather boots. And for a lot of people, like, that was an iconic moment. And it was also in the papers and on the blogs, and it was this beautiful, beautiful moment. But what I often share is when I was in that parade, I was having the time of my life, and I walked so proudly, and I loved getting to see so many humans in person. But what you don't know is that morning, and even walking up to my spot at the parade, is I was having panic attacks on my way there. Like, I had the worst morning. I want to say that at that time I had just found out that the person I was in a relationship with had cheated on me. And I would stop in the bathrooms, like on the way to where I needed to go, and I would cry in the bathroom. Now, tell me, when I'm showing up at the parade and I'm smiling, am I being fake because I had a horrible morning? Like, No, I'm simply surviving and I'm being as present as I can.
Yeah.
For some reason, we believe that emotions need to be separate. Either you're happy or you're sad. Both of those things can coexist. But we have chosen to project meaning on social media as if it's only telling one side of the story, and that's the whole story. And don't get me wrong, at the same time, because that's how we project meaning on other people, we then change our actions and we believe, oh, well, I can only show the rainbows and the butterflies. I can only show the happy moments. You can show whatever you want, boo-boo. Like, you can show whatever you want. It is your photo album. It is if you want it to be only the highlight reel, that's fine. But even a theme of this conversation has been that some of my highlights have actually been some of the lowest moments of my life, because it made me realize, like, oh, I don't want that. Or actually, I can find some beauty in this. And so where I attempt to reset my client's expectation is just pausing and seeing the meaning that you're putting onto the feed, onto other people, onto events, onto your own social interactions, onto the own expectations that you have of yourself, and start stripping some of those things away. Where if you think, for example, that social media is this toxic place, well, boo-boo, that's on you. You have created a toxic environment where social media and algorithms, they're not magic pills, they're not foreign objects, they're not monsters, they're tools. And I often also use the comparison of a box of matches or a lighter, okay? Like, if you want, you can use a box of matches to light candles, to bring light to an area. You can use it to light the gas of a barbecue, and you can make food for your friends. You can use it to light a fire in your backyard or a fire pit, and you can bring people around, and you can get warm, and you can make s'mores, and you can share stories. Or you can douse it with gasoline, throw it into a dumpster. You can burn a house down. You can burn a whole forest down. It's ultimately just about how it is that you're using it. And if all you're seeing is fake people on your feed, well, I would challenge you to look around. Do you have fake friends? Are you hanging out with a lot of people who you don't actually like? Are you following a lot of people who suck? That's on you. Are you seeing a lot of like political toxicity on your platform and a lot of arguing and really extreme perspectives? Even if you're not participating, that's on you, because all of your feeds are a reflection of where you're spending your time, what you're Googling, what you're searching, what you're DMing, whose profile you're spending time on. If you keep on getting recommended people who you don't like, that's on you. Yeah. And so it is then like making you realize, oh, you thought that you wanted help with growing your social media, but actually you need some help on where you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with. And seeing the ways in which your online habits might also be a reflection of your offline habits as well. And you also mentioned too, like, what are my fears for the next generation? My fears for the next generation is that they're not going to have parents who know how to use social media as a tool. They only know how to use it as this dumpster fire. And so they're going to continue to reflect those habits, versus seeing the ways in which you can actually connect on a deeper level with people, with self, and also use it to meet incredible humans, to potentially grow a business or a brand or share a story or increase visibility. And you can take control of it versus allowing for it to take complete control of you. So I hope someone listening took something from that, because all of us could potentially check ourselves before we have the potential to wreck ourselves.
I love that.
I took a lot from that.
You know,
Good.
Chelsea said
We just went to, you didn't know we were going to church today, did you?
Yeah, right.
Hallelujah.
Boo boo. Chelsea, when we had her on the call, she was just like, you're going to love her. You're going to love her. And Matt Leonetti, right before we hung up with him, he was like, oh my God, Giselle, you're going to love her. You're going to love her. Yeah, that was, you just dropped bomb after bomb after bomb. And the one thing that came up in my mind, is, you know how they say, you know, money doesn't make people assholes. It just amplifies who they really are. It's like, if you have an audience, it's just who you are and what your intentions are is just, even if you don't or do, but on social, it's just going to be amplified. So it's almost like a self-help or a self-development that you have to go through first to be able to actually use that book of matches in the right manner.
And you think that you want as many followers as possible or as many views as possible. But like, again, you don't like everybody. Not everybody is going to like you. Whether you're showing up to a new school or a vacation or a networking event or a party, you have people who you gravitate towards and you have people who you're like, that those aren't my people. It's the same thing online. You have those people who you're like, I can't put my finger on it, but they just rub me the wrong way.
Yeah.
You're probably right. Those probably aren't your people. And then you have the ones who are like, oh my God, I wish that we were best friends. Or as I mentioned, Sarah Blakely, I forget that we don't know each other because we're best friends already. I just don't have her name in my phone and she has no idea that I exist. And that's really what it's about. It's just one more place to interact with people. And either you can show up as yourself or you can keep trying to be somebody else. But trying to be somebody else online and off, it is exhausting. It's not fun.
Yeah. I think obviously we've learned a lot about your passion for making sure people are vulnerable, people are sharing, not necessarily just the positive side of things, but some of the struggles. Tell us a little bit more about how obviously you've had a strong presence for at least the last 10 years.
13, isn't that wild?
13 years in media, creating content across the spectrum. But now recently you've decided to sort of focus that a little bit more on the real estate industry, which to me is sort of, I don't want to say funny, but it's funny because there's a lot of different personalities in this world. By founding the first ever real estate talent bureau, as we said, the talent brokerage with some familiar faces, of course, Matt Leonetti, Glenda Baker, Tyler Whitman, all of which have been on the podcast, Chelsea Pites. Tell us a little bit about your start with the talent brokerage, why you created it, what the focus is.
Absolutely. So I started to create and study online video content 13 years ago. I got one of those little Facebook flashbacks a little while ago, and I looked at the little timestamp on a screenshot that I posted. And my journey has been across the board. For me, I uploaded my first YouTube video thinking that no one would see it. No one knew what YouTube was. I had to tell people how to pronounce the word blog, which is blog, by the way, in case that took you a moment, like brain dyslexia of like, what did she say? I had to tell people how to pronounce that because I didn't know what it was. And the only reason why I uploaded videos to YouTube was because at that season in my life, I wanted to be a television reporter. I wanted to do entertainment news. YouTube was beneath me. That was not where we wanted to be on TV. That was the prime time thing. And I was given the advice that I should learn how to do everything in and around my craft. So I saved up, bought a used camera. I wanted to learn how to edit and record myself and do audio and video. And my first videos were horrible. And I had no idea that even like this whole culture of following and subscribing, like that just didn't exist. But what I did find were these extraordinarily average teenagers who were making videos in their college dorms and they had hundreds of thousands, millions of subscribers. And this was something that nobody was talking about. And it drove me nuts because as someone who wanted to work in TV, I thought that I had to be a size 0. I thought that my skin had to be perfect. I thought that every single word had to be enunciated correctly. And God forbid I say or a hair be out of place or my spray tan be uneven. And so to see these kids get all of this attention, I was like, oh, well, there's no way that it's the kids. Like they had to have cracked something. Like, is it the day of the week that they're uploading? Is it the title that they're using? Is it the tags? Like what? There's no way that it could possibly, like what in the world? And I studied and studied and studied. And I realized over time, and it took me a little too long, that it had nothing to do with the time of upload or the day of the week. It was just the fact that they were consistent. Their audience knew that they were going to be coming back, whether it was once a month or every day or once a week. They had communities. All of their videos were not for them or with any kind of ulterior motive whatsoever. They accidentally stumbled on this platform where they could connect with people. And they would share stories about themselves. And not to mention, community wasn't just about their audience. Community was also showing other people in their lives, whether it was their families or their roommates or their friends. And so you felt connected to these people or these groups of friends that maybe you didn't actually have in your real life. And with a lot of these kids who were subscribers, that was absolutely the case. And more than anything, they cared. Like they really, truly cared about what they were doing. And I realize now 10, 11, 12, 13 years later, that's still the same formula for social media. That's still the same formula for short form video. That's still the same formula for YouTube, for TikTok, for Instagram, for Reels. At the end of the day, we just want to know that we can rely on the people in our lives, that we can trust them, that they're going to keep on coming back, and that we're not alone. And that's why you might think, oh, she started 13 years ago. Well, she gets it because she's been doing it for 13 years. No, you've lived on this earth for as long as you have lived. You've connected and talked to people in your own unique ways, with your own unique accent, with whatever dreams that you have and insecurities. And this is just one more platform where you can connect. The difference is that when we use video, people feel like they're getting more of the whole experience of what it would actually be like if I was in a room with you right now, even if it is recorded, or even if it is over Zoom, or even if it is over FaceTime. There's still that feeling of connection. And so that's what it's been over time. And so I'll give you the fast forward. It went from YouTube. That unlocked my power to be able to get on TV. I had a TV career. I did entertainment news. I did sports. I did red carpets, all of that. I peaked at like 24. And by that, it's that it accelerated my path. I didn't think I would have my dream job until I was like 30. I got it at 24. And then I very quickly burnt out from the entertainment industry and from taking every single job I could, because especially being a female, one of the things that they don't tell you is a great way to get your foot in the door is when someone's on vacation or on maternity leave. And so I was terrified to take vacation, and I would take every single job that I could as a freelancer. I worked in advertising as well, and along the way have continued to be a content creator, but also I worked in radio where I couldn't see my face, and it was just about my voice and my storytelling and who I was as a human being. And all of that has transformed over time, where I didn't realize it, but even 13 years ago, when I started to work with brands, I was working in influencer marketing before that became a department. And I was speaking to different people, teaching them, training them to understand both the features of platform, but also the way that human connection and psychology works. And over time, it's just followed me into different spaces, as what we're now seeing in, for example, real estate. But honestly, every industry, every brand, every everyday people is, building these personal brands to show the stories and show who we are and show our businesses and show our teams and show our families and connect with people who we otherwise never would have met in real life. And so with real estate, I didn't attempt to go after it. It was ultimately that, as you know, it is a contagiously referral-based business. And when one person does something, they want everybody to know about it, because there's not competition typically, not always, but typically across state lines or even neighborhood lines. And you want each other to win, and you want your referral partners to win, and you want to be able to rely on them and make it as easy as possible to get your clients to trust them. And so it was just an industry that embraced me fully. A lot of right place, right time, right audience, kind people who wanted to connect me. And then from there, someone opens a door, I kick it down and I disrupt it, and I bring all of my friends, and I, have a feast in your kitchen. And that's really been what it has been over the last year and a half. It's still not the only thing that I do. I mean, I have clients who are in aerospace. I have clients who are in education. I have clients who are in health and wellness, but it is an industry that has been very good to me. I see a need, I see a demand, because it's bigger than just transaction. It's teaching people about wealth. It's showing that the homeowner does not look the same that it did 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And it's also even from, a lot of people get into real estate because maybe they themselves had a bad real estate agent. I didn't have that. I had a, good, decent experiences with my own home ownership process, but there were so many things that I felt like I was missing, or support that I didn't have, or questions that I was too afraid to ask, and Google was not of assistance. And just realizing like how much opportunity that there was to hear other perspectives and stories and experiences, to be able to, help people, not even on my end, like the consumer, through the home buying, the investing experience. And so I've found more purpose in that. But also it's been something that I was not expecting or looking for at all. And I'm taking it one day at a time in stride.
I love that. The one thing, when you say story and trust, I feel I'm learning that it's one and the same, right? And my coach was actually giving me a really good analogy the other day. He was like, now he's like 30 years ago in real estate, you would come to the seller's house, you would ask them all these questions. How much do you owe on the property? This, that, and the other. And you're just like kind of a detective. And then you go in there and they're like, oh my God, you have my tax records. Oh my God, you have the square footage of my house. And they trust you because you're coming with evidence of the value and everything that you've done research on. Today, all that information is public. So it's like they need to trust you more than anything else, that you're the same person that you represented as the sound of your voice or the way that they saw an ad or whatever the case it is. The biggest thing and the biggest challenge, I think, is creating that story. And my hallucination is that the authenticity, or kind of trying to formulate it in a way where it builds trust, but it's the right amount of vulnerability and right amount of delivery in the message that you want to portray. Is there a formula to break that down? I know you were saying earlier that's one of the things that you help people do is create that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's important to recognize that how you want to run your business is very different from your competition or the agent next to you. There's this assumption of, I want to sell as many houses as possible, or like that we all want the same thing, that we're all going after the same thing. There are plenty of clients who I have who they're like, Giselle, I don't want to build a team, and then there are some who say, Giselle, I never want to sell another fucking house in my life. Please, I only want to focus on building a team. Or, you know what, I don't know if like real estate is the only thing for me. I want to get into investing, or I want to start this other company that's completely different. Or as you just had Matt Leonetti, who he's a speaker on our talent roster, where he's like, I've had dreams for a while to be a speaker. And I really want to take my content creation seriously. And some of those things can coexist, but first and foremost, it's important to recognize that all of our destinations and ideas of happiness and ideas of work-life balance and ideas of content, like it all looks different. And so with that, there's not a single cut and dry formula, but we can create your own unique algebraic equation of how are you going to get there. So for example, if your goal for this year is I want to sell my first, $5-10 million house, well, that's great that all of your first time home buying content is, getting the most views. But if you're continuing to make content for first time home buyers, and your hope is that you want to list $5 and $10 million homes, you're not going to attract the $5 and $10 million home seller if you're only making content for that first time home buyer. If you are so excited and you love working with first time home buyers, or maybe you're someone who you love talking to people about money and their first investment, and you're passionate about that, great, make content around that. So then it's then figuring out, all right, we've got our destination of where we want to go. Now let's figure out who we're talking to. So let's figure out, like, who are we talking to? Who are we talking to? And then we can figure out X, which is, what is the message? So if my hope is I want to get that $5 to $10 million homeowner to trust me to sell their home, what messages do they need to see? What questions are they asking? What are they Googling? What are they wondering? How are they choosing their agent? And how can I create content that asks those questions, addresses those concerns before they even ask it? So that way, when they're creeping and they're going to my profile, which that's your portfolio, it's not the listings on your website. It's what does your profile say about you? And in those first 9 tiles, do you have content that tells that story? And I even ran into that yesterday with a client who I was like, okay, very similar situation. So tell me, in those first 9 tiles, how many videos do you have that are addressing, for him, it's a family that's both selling and buying? How many videos do you have? He's like, well, I guess I kind of mentioned something in one of these videos towards the end of, none. The answer is 0. So go and look. And that is the nice thing. We're now on every platform, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, you can pin posts to the top of your feed. What do those 3 pinned posts say about you? Those pinned posts you can curate, you can calculate. Do you have an introduction post that lets people know who you are and beyond real estate? Maybe it's a carousel of photos. Maybe it is a video. Or, do you have, if you are wanting to build a team, do you have a post that you've pinned where you talk about the culture of your team, or what are 3 things that you look for when you hire? If you're trying to attract that higher caliber luxury listing, do you talk about what it takes to sell? Or maybe it's a timeline, or maybe it's why you should stage, or maybe it's whatever that looks like for you. Does it tell that story? And if it doesn't, then use this as your sign to check yourself and either find that content within your feed to populate back up to the top, or all right, I'm going to put this on my content calendar that if I do nothing else, I do 3 posts this month, that if anybody were to come to my profile, not someone who follows me, but someone who doesn't, they're creeping, they're researching, they're trying to see who are you, that these are the 3 things that they see and can very clearly tell that I'm not just an encyclopedia, but that I get it, that I have a perspective, that I have an opinion, that I'm giving them context, and that I'm actually the one that they should trust and the expert in what I am trying to do, not the expert of everything, but of what I am trying to do, then that's all that it takes.
Isn't it interesting that we all go through the motions, like on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, without actually having like a direct focus? Like,
maybe.
Yeah, I think we did, like, we're on episode 55 of this podcast. I think if around episode 20 or so, we're like, hey, who's our audience? What are we focused on? Is it agents? Is it buyers? Is it sellers? I think it wasn't until year 5 in the real estate business that I was like, hey, like, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to build a team? Am I trying to be the luxury agent? Am I trying to be, the agent who's sort of in that middle price point, but does, a lot more volume? What is my focus? And I think sometimes we just get caught up so much in the day to day, or, hey, we've got, 3 more podcasts to film, or we've got to get 3 more listings because that's what my goal is for this month, that we lose track of that focus.
Yeah. And really measuring, and figuring out what's the ROI for you? Right. What is the ROI for you? What does that look like for you? Because cool if you got all these views, but if it's not translating into dollars and your ROI is a dollar amount, all right, something's not working. I had a client recently who initially she came to me and she said, I really want my follower count to go up. I really want my views to go up. And I'm like, okay, but hold on. And she's someone who her followers have only gone up a little bit, probably less than 100 since we started working together. But she has 1,500 followers, had a video get like 25,000 views in less than a week. And from that video got 25 or 26 quality investing, leads and 5 referral partners. Like that is more important than going viral or getting 10,000 followers, because if it's not actually getting you to where you want to go, great that it's helping to get views, but if it's not actually attracting what you want or the type of people that you want or the dollars that you want, then what is the point? That's just running on the treadmill with no destination in sight.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and being intentional about what you want to be portrayed as. I think one of the biggest things that's like a struggle is the appeal of trying to appease everyone. Yeah. And not being comfortable in your own voice, of it being acceptable, or because it takes time for it to click, right? It's not like you're going to automatically send out a message and people are going to be like, that was great. But there's a lot of that uphill battle. Even doing this podcast, it's like, all right, what's the voice that we want to actually like sit in? Like, how do we actually want to be and portray ourselves? And we're big believers and advocates of always getting a coach in everything that you're trying to improve on. Is there something that you've seen in terms of a trend from the ones that make some of your clients great and from the rest?
It's actually the anti-trend. I call myself the anti-trend coach, which is putting your earmuffs on and getting rid of the noise. When you're chasing trends, you're going to exhaust yourself, because what performs well is originality. And the only original content that exists is when it's coming from your own personal voice, experience, perspective. Nothing is actually original. And in fact, you guys had Chelsea on the podcast, who she and I collaborate a lot together as coaches. You could give us the exact same 30 questions or the exact same 30 social media content prompts, and I guarantee you that there might be some overlap, but we would answer them completely different. Whether it's because our voices sound different, we look completely different, our experiences are completely different. And so it is just allowing for yourself to get out of that trap of comparison, to get out of, even for example, Instagram said recently that they're going to put a focus on photos. And so you have a lot of quote unquote coaches who are sharing this headline and this news saying Instagram's going to start putting focus on photos again, start posting photos again. Well, I'm looking at it and saying, here's why you should not give a fuck.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that change.
Yeah.
And also, at the end of the day, we're not going back after video. Unless they remove the video feature, video is still going to be the way that you secure trust the fastest. Can you still secure trust from posting photos? Absolutely. Should you be more strategic in, say, posting carousels and multiple photos instead of just one to paint that picture or to bring it together in the caption? Absolutely. But we have not seen Instagram change yet. So don't all of a sudden change everything that you're doing because Instagram says so. Yeah. We can look back at the history and remember Instagram said, use this trending audio. Hold on a second. Why? They told us to use trending audio. Now a lot of that trending audio has disappeared. Also, that trending audio didn't do anything more than a trending hashtag, which we also need to catch ourselves there. We think trending means formula to go viral. It's not. It's trending because a lot of people are doing it. Does that mean you have to do it? Sorry, but I refuse to wear low-rise jeans. No, thank you. Not for me. Not helping me or my tummy with where I want to go. So you need to figure out, is the advice that they're giving, are these headlines actually serving you and where you want to go? So that's where I, again, just long answer longer, tell my clients, put your earmuffs on. All right? Just put it on. Where are we trying to get you? That's what we need to do. Oh, but I don't want to dance. I don't want to point. I'm not telling you to. I don't do that. If you don't want to do that, don't do that. There are some things that just because you don't want to, you need to do it because you have to put in the work. But if it means you not being true to who you are, then fine. And ultimately, you have to be able to learn and make mistakes and feel stupid and make the cringy video in order to be able to unlearn what has been there the entire time. A lot of times we don't like how we look or how we sound, not because we don't like how we look or how we sound, but because we know that what we're seeing does not match what we see in the mirror. It doesn't match how we hear ourselves. We are overcompensating by speaking with a higher pitch in our tone or a lower pitch, or we're adding unnecessary question marks, or we're smiling more than we normally would, or we're doing weird things with our hands. And again, that's not because you look quote unquote bad. It's because you're just not comfortable being yourself yet. But once you get into this point of getting out of your own head and putting the audience first, just like if you were having a conversation at lunch. If I'm having a conversation with you, I'm not going to be staring at my reflection in the mirror the whole time going, oh, but this one hair is out of place. Or hold on, I said that wrong. Can I leave and go back to my car and come back and start over? You're not thinking about that because you're just focused on connection and you're focused on getting your point across. Yeah. So it's just simply practicing to the point to where you can get it to feel as much of a real life experience as possible, and knowing that yes, it's going to be cringeworthy in the process because you've never done this before.
Yeah, I love that. It's insane how both you and Chelsea have such a good way of giving information in a way that's so digestible. I probably repeated it 3 times since it was mentioned. Chelsea said, people come for the plot and stay for the character. Mm-hmm. And I was just that resonated so much. And then you had a post recently where you were talking about how people have these general hooks to try to keep people in. And you're that's not going to work, right? But identifying issues that come up and trying to see how you can provide value is the most important thing. And I'll say one quote that resonates with me that reminds me of this. Jim Rohn used to always say, you get paid in direct correlation to the value that you give to the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying essentially is the same exact thing, right?
Mm-hmm. And if you're not getting paid, then you're not bringing value.
Exactly.
Or enough value.
Yeah. So if you're having some curious questions in terms of what it is that you're delivering there, it's not valuable if it's not getting the outcome you want. And that resonates like crazy when you said that. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Giselle, that was very insightful. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I know your time is valuable. I'm looking at the clock here. I want to make sure we hold to our promise.
You're good.
If anybody wants to reach out to you, to collaborate with you, to potentially work with you at some level in the future, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Absolutely. Instagram, my website, Giselle Ugarte, across all platforms. Slide into the DMs. They're open all the time. And, the talent brokerage is also my baby, where I'm so grateful to have people like Matt and Chelsea, where we are the first talent bureau for the real estate industry. And what that means is that we have influencers and content creators and speakers and educators and coaches that are sharing knowledge and advice in a very different way. Because the way that we do business has drastically and exponentially changed in the last 3 months, 6 months, year, 2 years, where a lot of the advice and how the legacy brands have been built, there's absolutely knowledge and expertise there. But it has changed significantly. And it's also important to recognize that, we need to see all different experiences and parts of the journey, not just the destination, especially because the destination looks so different nowadays. Yeah. So to be able to have different faces and diverse voices and experiences on that platform to pave the way at your next event or for your team to inspire either in person or virtually or partner up with a brand, that's also something that I'm really, really excited to be able to open the doors for my friends who I believe in so much. And that's ultimately, again, it's what it is. It's seeing the potential in other people and hoping that they're able to make a greater impact than what you could do by yourself.
I love that.
Well said.
And being around you, they definitely will achieve that. That's awesome.
Let's go. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right, friends. Well, it was
Giselle,
so good to meet you. Let me
you
know
too.
How I can support you. Keep us posted. And I'm excited to see the finished episode.
We are too.